Hi, I'm Mike Coe. Fast money and options action are dark while CNBC covers the 2022 Winter Olympics from Beijing. But don't worry, Carter and I are providing some bonus content in the meantime. Here's some of the notable options activity today. First, a few names seeing bullish activity. Spirit Airlines, ticker SAVE, saw well above average options volume following the announcement that they would merge with Frontier Holdings. Under Armour, which reports earnings this Friday, traded greater than 5 times its average daily call volume. The weekly 20.5 strike calls were the most active. Tyson Foods, which reported better than expected earnings today, traded greater than 8 times its average daily call volume. We also saw some bullish flow in Harley-Davidson ahead of their earnings tomorrow, mostly buyers of the Feb weekly 38 calls. Names seeing some bearish flow include Cisco, the food and beverage wholesaler, ticker SYY, which reports earnings tomorrow. Saw a large 77.70 put diagonal trade. A trader there may be betting on some post-earnings weakness. KE Holdings, the Chinese real estate services company, ADR ticker BEKE, saw over 40,000 Feb 15 puts trade today. That company is down nearly 70% over the past year. Outdoor cooking company WEBR reports on Valentine's Day. A lot of put activity, but it appears that this is largely adjusting existing positions that were established about a month ago on in-the-money 17.5 strike puts. Two other companies that saw well above average options volume today were also on the Chartmaster's radar. ON Semiconductor traded a big block of over 10,000 January 2023 puts following an earnings beat. And Leslie's, which reported last week, saw a big block of the Feb 17.5 puts sold. Carter, what are you seeing in those two names?
Right, there's so much going on, and quite often, of course, the chart informs us before news, and then, of course, there are instances where the chart is only interesting after the news. But if you look at ON Semi, now you're simply looking at the chart of ON on the top, price action, and you're looking at volume on the bottom. And what I'm going to try to do is move backward and forward to really highlight what I think are the important messages in this chart. So if you look at the next chart, what you see here is look at those spikes in volume. If we go back to the first, let's toggle back and forth without the circles, with the circles. What we know is, you can see it here, that you have very bullish price volume correlation. So you see how those ovals are on the bottom panel. And notice above, look at the next chart, the stock gaps up. Now, why is that? Those gaps are all 13 weeks apart. 13 times 4 is 52. Those are earnings. And they obviously have to be good earnings. Indeed, it's important to say this. There's no such thing as good or bad news or earnings. There's only earnings, news, what have you. And it's how the stock reacts. For instance, you'll often hear an instance where the stock guides down, announces the worst margins ever, going to cut the dividend, but then it surges. So obviously that was good news. And in this instance, I don't look at news. What we look at is price volume correlation. It's bullish. The stock gaps up today. That must be its third good piece of news. And then if you look at the next chart, look where it stopped. It stopped right on the trend line. I mean, we have all the things we could want that make a stock interesting. And finally, the final chart here for ON, look at this. It's the same on the top panel, but most important of all the factors that have ever been studied in the biggest quant models, in addition to momentum, relative strength reigns supreme. That bottom panel depicts ON, a semiconductor stock's performance to the SOX index. So even as it was dipping before the current bounce, it was making almost new relative highs to its peers. It couldn't be better. Now,
That's interesting. What about Leslie's?
Yeah, I mean, well, how about this? This has been a pretty big bull run. I mean, this stock didn't participate over the last 2 months or 4 months or 8 months. It's the definition of poor relative strength. Something can't be right. It's in a downtrend. The oldest rule in the book is don't buy stocks in downtrends, as tempting as it might be. And we've all learned lessons from that. Just don't do it. And notice here, it has bearish price volume correlation. It's hovering right at well-defined lows. There's no reason this can't break to new lows. Not good.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The activity that we saw on the options side in ON Semi, especially following the positive news that we saw today. Think about what the expiration on that was. January 2023. Who would be putting a trade like that on at a point like this? Well, if you owned the stock and you just saw a big, uptick like we saw just now, this is a good way for somebody who has a substantial holding to hedge their position. I expect that's probably what the options flow that we were seeing in ON Semi was. And of course, the activity on the option side in Leslie's continues to be bearish. And of course, there's little reason for optimism. So I'm Mike Coe. Thanks, Carter, for joining us. Please follow us both on Twitter, and we will try to provide more bonus content while the Olympics are on. Thanks for watching.